Were you at the NAR conference in Boston
I
or?
was not. I had 3 team members that were there, so
Ah,
I did not go, but I had Clint, Scoot Khan, and Katie Schatz and Mitch Robinson were all there. So
yeah,
you know, I have been to many, many, many of those, and I
I'm
wanted to make
sure.
sure we had people there.
Yeah.
But no, we had all of our end of year planning work. So I had a bunch of the team with me in California that week.
Yeah,
So
I didn't go this year either. Just too much going on, I heard it was fun. I don't know. All right, here we go. Bear with me just a second. All right, just one more moment. Make sure my
all
is
good.
turned off. Um, okay, here we go. All right. Okay, today on the show, my guest is Jack Miller, who's the CEO of T360, which is a real estate consulting agency. I'll tell you more about Jack and T360. Jack is responsible for the overall management and financial health of T360. He previously served as T360's chief technology officer and lead of T3 Fellows, which is a division of T360. He has 2 decades of real estate industry experience with management roles in franchising, franchise ownership, and brokerage. Prior to joining the real estate industry, Jack worked in multiple technology startup companies, including as a partner and investor. He is a consistent contributor to the Swanepoel Trends Report, as well as various papers and abstracts on technology. Jack has a bachelor's of science in electrical and computer engineering from the University of Texas. And for those of you that go, I do not know T360, I will tell you from a brokerage perspective, they are the news source and the data source and the analysts that brokerages look to say what's going on in the industry, what's the health of the industry, where is it going. This is the company that we all look to. So this is a very special episode for me to talk to the CEO. Jack, welcome to the show.
DJ, I'm delighted to be here and to be here with your listeners. We're gonna do some fun stuff today.
Yeah, let's dive right into it. So before we sort of get started, I would love to sort of just set the table for what T360 is and how it
Sure.
got started and how it got to where it
Yeah.
is today.
Yeah. And I'll use it as a little opportunity to give my bio some color because it's I think people hear that and they're like, does Jack know anything about our industry? Because I can't tell, right? Because it's high level, but I came into the industry in 2001 and I worked for a national franchise. I actually worked directly for Gary Keller and Mo Anderson when they were building Keller Williams into a national company. It was really a regional franchise company at the time. And I did come out of the tech industry, but I've been in the industry since then and have owned and operated franchises in the Keller Williams network, have run an independent brokerage here in Austin with some partners, and got licensed and sold real estate myself. And so for a lot of your listeners, it's like I've been in your chair. There's almost no part of franchise brokerage, all of those things that I've not done and have enormous passion for. And so that's what I'll say just about my personal background is I started as a tech guy. I became a real estate person in 2001 and have just fallen in love with this industry ever since. Our team, we have about 40 people that work for T360 and our media affiliate, Real Estate News. T360, we decided to design a consulting and management company really for residential brokerage industry. And there's a lot of big consulting companies like a McKinsey or
Sure.
PricewaterhouseCoopers or KPMG, and they serve the financial industry and the healthcare industry and all these other industries. There really has not been the equivalent of those kinds of companies for residential brokerage. And so we currently serve about 300 clients in the brokerage, MLS, association, and technology space that all do work in residential real estate brokerage. So it's all residential real estate brokerage focused. We're doing a little bit of work in mortgage right now. There's some opportunities in that space that we're exploring. And we also produce 2 books a year. We do the Swanepoel Trends Report, which is now in its 20th edition. And that's an overview of the trends that we believe will impact the industry for the next 2 to 3 years. Essential reading for anybody in real estate leadership, we believe. And that's currently distributed to a couple thousand leaders every year. And that's a pay-for report that you can get at t3trends.com. And then we have a free report, which is the Real Estate Almanac, and it's a comprehensive evaluation and list of top 1,000 brokerages, all the big, all the MLSs, all the associations, the top 200 leaders in the industry, which we do a very diligent ranking exercise every year to rank the top 200 leaders. All the large technology companies, there's about 200 technology companies in the industry that we also categorize as these are the top companies in each product category. All of that is at realestatealmanac.com. And again, we also publish a book that goes, it's a chunky 500-page almanac type book every year. So that's we produce intelligence for the industry, but we also do tons and tons of projects and consulting, and if there we and 4 former CEOs that work within the company and a whole team of people that came out of the industry that are here to give extra horsepower to a broker, an MLS, an association, a big team. You're like, hey, I need some. I'm going to make some changes in my business. We're the right people to talk to for doing that.
Yeah, thanks for that. And also, too, you have a new report that is out called the Opportunity Report. And I believe this is in conjunction with homes.com. And it is really a good sample of what you guys do in the industry. And people can actually download this report. You should. It is jam full of great information. I was reading through it this morning. It's the opportunityreport.com. We'll have a link to that in the show notes. We'll be talking about that today, that specific report. And also, T360 has a news arm of their company. So if you're somebody who likes to read real estate brokerage news, realestatenews.com should be added to your watch list. They're fantastic. You can sign up for their email list, but bookmark that, because there aren't a lot of great real estate news sites online, and Real Estate News is newer and they are nipping at the heels of some of the big boys out there. So check them out, and they have really great articles. What Jack was telling me earlier, because I wasn't as familiar, what I love is they do a summary at the beginning of each article, which is really, it's like too long, didn't read kind of scenario.
Yeah,
you could just go right to it.
Yeah.
So for all you Reddit people, you'll love it.
That news arm, they send 1 email a day with the news stories that we think real estate professionals should pay attention to. Every article has a bullet summary at the beginning that you can digest in probably 10 seconds, so that and if you want to read the whole article, it's all there, but there's always a summary. It's not a pay to play type of organization. It is something where we only write about what we think industry professionals need to hear. So and you can, the daily email is free. You can sign up for a subscription to get access to all of the articles and the additional research we publish there.
That's realestatenews.com. And then also, again, the opportunityreport.com is where you can download that report. And just for everyone out there who's still getting acclimated now to T360, this might be the first time you're aware of them. I will tell you, from a brokerage perspective, we look at like 2 reports a year. One is whatever T360 is saying, we're going to read it, and the Zillow report every year just on the data they collect. Those are the 2 big ones. And this is really so much fun to talk to you, because right now the industry is in flux a bit, or at least going through change, or has been going through change, and people are agents are sort of interested to know what the analysts and the consultants think is the future of real estate brokerage and agents themselves. So I asked our audience to come up with some questions for you, and funny enough, I think most of them are actually talked about in the Opportunity Report. Again, theopportunityreport.com. Again, link to that in the show notes. But can we just dive right into some topics and have you give us your take?
I want to give a little bit of background just so
Go
people
ahead.
know where the information comes from, because I think this is it'd be very easy to hear this and go like, did these guys just make this up? Where did this come from? So 10 years ago, NAR paid our firm to do a risk assessment of the industry. And in that, we had our founder and my partner, Stefan, flew and visited in person with 50 leaders in the industry in their offices, confidential interviews. We also did surveys, and we did some focus group work, and we compiled it all into a report, which is called the Danger Report, which we released in 2015. So that report overviewed all of the risks that we thought the industry was facing at that time. The Opportunity Report is really an update to that Danger Report, but from a different perspective. And this time, the work was sponsored via homes.com, and we follow the same process. We picked 50 of the leaders of large or important organizations in the industry from across the spectrum: brokerage, franchise, MLS, association, some other consultants, some other people that do work in the industry, at leadership level, media organizations, and said, what do we think the big opportunities are for real estate professionals right now? And so a lot of what I'll say is we talked to a ton of really smart people. It isn't all our original thoughts, and we synthesized it into a single document. And there's some different perspectives offered in the document, but they all highlight these are the things that we think are important to pay attention to right now. Now, the danger report, we did do an analysis of the danger report that we wrote 10 years ago about all those risks.
Yeah.
And the front part of the opportunity report is kind of fun. We gave the danger report to ChatGPT and said, evaluate our report.
How well we did.
Yeah, give us a score. How did we do? And there were again, about 25, 30 different dangers, all broken out by industry segment. And overall, it gave that report an 83% score of accuracy. And it went piece by piece by piece. And there were many things in there like regulatory impact on the industry. 100%. That's absolutely happened. The industry has had regulatory impact, right? The growth and dominance of teams in growth of sales volume, commission compression, all of these like changes that we all know have happened. It rated all of those. And so what I would say to the listener is that if you're like, well, why should I read this report? Well, the same organization that produced the danger report 10 years ago that had 83% accuracy has produced another report with the same methodology. It's likely to have a similar degree of accuracy. So if you knew you could get a document that was 83% accurate about what's going to happen 10 years in the future, I would recommend you read it.
Well, I would even say, how much would you pay for something like that, right? And the fact that you don't have to pay for this particular report and other reports T360 does is, of course, behind a paywall because, they're a company, they need to make profit. But this is something that everyone should read about. And again, even if half of it is true, which of course the data would maybe suggest that more than half of it should be true. But even if half of it's true, there's lots of good takeaways in here. And just to sort of talk about this report a little, high level, what were some of the trends that you saw starting to emerge as you were working this report?
So there's a through line in the whole report that I talk about, because you go through it and you go, well, what's the big theme? What's the big message? And the big message is really about value. It is about the consumer valuing the agent and how that happens now, because we've had a major shift in that relationship. It's about how the real estate professional values the MLS, their local, their state, and the National Association. And we're in a time, DJ, where there's been some loss of trust in institutions, and not just in our industry. I think this is broadly true in North America and in the U.S. is where we've said we don't think these institutions have done their job. And that's part of what we listened. We interviewed these 50 leaders, and they said, look, some of the institutions or industry have not done the job they needed to do for us. And so the way you rebuild, the way you move forward with that in an opportunistic framework is you work on value. And as an agent practitioner or as a broker, we need to demonstrate our value to the consumer, which, by the way, the good news is I think the industry has tons of value. I've been a practitioner. I've sold real estate myself. I had agents that worked for us and the franchises that I had ownership in, and the local brokerage we had here in Austin. I've spent a lot of time, up close and personal, and there's tremendous value that the industry has. We're just not very good about talking about it. We're not very good about explaining it. We're not very good about packaging and positioning it. I think we do a pretty good job on the listing side. I think that's where listing agents, generally probably any one of your listeners, we could get them on and say, give us your listing presentation. If you're a listing agent, they've done it for a while, they probably do a pretty good job.
Yeah.
But we say, all right, we're going to bring somebody on that works with buyers. Yeah. And it's going to be a little spotty because they've not been asked to discuss, present, and help people understand their value at the level that they are now. And I think that's the big transition we're going through. Is that
and having the buyer sign off on the commission agreement, having that, I think it could be pretty well easily argued that buyers were always paying commissions in some form or another. They just weren't necessarily they weren't writing the check. They weren't seeing the actual money flow from their bank account out to a particular commission, but now they do. So you're right. Those conversations are just much different.
Yeah, for sure. But that's the through line in the report. And so I think we're set up. I mean, we can dive into there's particular areas, but as many of the areas are going to come back to how is the industry demonstrating value, either the consumer, the practitioner, and that's the big theme.
Well, my first question is about the NAR settlement, and in particular, in within the industry, in the agent side and on the brokerage side, it's all we've really heard about for the last year and a half or so.
True.
However, and we see lots of news articles being written for the public about this. Of course, it's made lots of news. How aware is the public about what's going on with NAR, and is that affecting their um, their perception of the value of a real estate agent?
So both less than we think, because this is one of those problems where we're in the industry, and so we think about it all the time. And so our experience is very, very different from the average consumer. The average consumer, they engage with our industry once every 10 to 12. It's actually now an average of every 12 years. It's pretty infrequent. It's a major life event when they do, though. So it's important, but they're not as engaged with the day to day. And so unless you're talking to people that are, really in the process, I mean, the people in the process are paying attention to the news about the process. They're paying attention to real estate. And we've definitely it's come up in our surveys and in other surveys that we're aware of, like, 1000 Watt has done some great survey work in the consumer space, and we talk to them all the time. Tom Ferry runs a coaching organization. They've done some survey work, and it's absolutely coming up in listing appointments, and people are saying what they're seeing in the media. But for a lot of the consumer public, if they're not engaged in the real estate process, they're probably not giving it a lot of attention. Much like, if there's something I'm not engaged in my day-to-day life, I may have peripheral awareness or no awareness of it. So it sort of depends on where that consumer is in their real estate life cycle, and if they're the more actively engaged, the more likely they are to be paying attention to news about real estate. And we're hearing regular reports, and then I'm on all the Facebook groups all your listeners are on. So I see that. So I've seen agents say, "Hey, this is coming up. I'm hearing this." Now, we did some of our own surveys after the August 17th. Some of that is fed into our trends report, which we're releasing in 2 weeks here. And that report and the survey work we did indicated that there's a significant portion of agents that work on the buy side where it's about 40% where it's impacted their ability to sign buyer clients, meaning they had to do some explaining. It's like, hey, this isn't as easy as it used to be to just get in a car and go with a client. And so it is now. I think that's going to go down. I think in a year from now, this will be old news. Everybody will have understood. Here's how to talk. So I'd say
They'll have perfected the buyer pitch. They'll know what to do.
I know what my value is as a buyer's agent. I know what things like, here's good examples of how I create value. Here's clients that I've worked with and what I did for them. People are going to get their explanation really well honed. And if they don't, they're going to get out. If you can't explain what you're doing in a way where the consumer understands it and is willing to sign up for it on the front end, then that's a part of the job you can't do. And that's an important part of the job now and in the future.
So another question about agents themselves, and I want to specifically talk about dual career versus single career, only because we have a holding company here in Illinois that we run, and which is for agents who aren't actively practicing but want to keep their license active. Again, they're not working in the industry at the time. Yeah. At the beginning of the year, we've had it for about 10 years or so. We had 800 agents in this holding company. This is in Illinois. We can kind of hold licenses all throughout the state. And by the end of this year, we'll be close to 1,300 agents. So we were seeing a bit of a huge increase in people leaving the industry, which I suspect are mostly dual career agents. But I'm curious to see what data you guys have or what trends you see about the role of the dual career agent moving forward versus single career.
Yeah, this is an industry that has a lot of that. It has a lot of people that do something else, but also do real estate, and policemen, firemen, teachers. There's many people that have a singular job that they've done for a long time, and then they add real estate to the mix, and it's an additional income for them. So what I will say is that I don't think the dual career person or the person that uses real estate as an additional income stream is going to necessarily go away. And as a matter of fact, there's a good case for it. The people, I wrote an article for Real Estate News last fall, And that article, what I said, the people that are likely to really struggle are the single career real estate people who they haven't quite established their career. Like they're doing, you know, 3, 4, 5 transactions a year, and they really do, like, real estate pays their mortgage and their light bill, and they're very dependent on it. And those are the folks that are most, I think. And at the time the article was written for brokers, said, look, brokers, this is who you need to help right now, is to make sure if you've got talented people, they need that extra step in their career so where they can really make this a full-time, where real estate is their full-time profession. Because of the market and these changes, they're going to need some extra support right now. But I think the dual career folks are fine, with the caveat that, if they're referral only status, that's a whole different thing.
Right.
But if they're
Sure.
actually practicing real estate, you of course have to be at that level of professional service. You're going to have to be able to represent, talk about your value. You're going to have to do all those things. Are now, it doesn't matter if you're full-time or part-time. You have to be as professional as possible. And there's good, this industry loves to beat up on people that are part-time in the industry. We love it. We love it. But actually, when you dig in, the complaint is not, hey, this person is a part-time agent. The complaint is actually they're not professional. They don't do a good job. They don't communicate with their client or with the cooperating broker. They don't, like that kind of thing. That's actually the root of that complaint. It's not about the part-time status. And by the way, I think for some consumers, the agent who is already made their money and is retired, or this is extra money for them and they just do it to serve their community, is actually a great agent to work with, because it's no pressure. Because they're saying, hey, I don't need this. I don't need this deal to pay my light bill. I'm doing this because I want to take care of you and your family. And I use it to make a little extra money, but it's not the only money that I make, right? So there's a case to be made where that dual career agent can be a better service, with the caveat that they have to be above a certain level of professionalism. And I also agree with some of the thinking, and I think our firm agrees with some of the thinking, that you need to be doing a certain number of transactions a year just to keep your skills up, right? Just to know what's happening in the market. You can't check out. You got to be plugged in enough to do that. If you got a good broker, you got a good coach, you got somebody that can make sure you're doing that, then absolutely. But that's kind of what I'd say overall. As far as numbers, we are seeing renewal numbers. We're in renewal as we're recording this podcast. We're in the renewal period for a lot of people's memberships in their associations, and the early take we have on it is that their renewal numbers will be down. And I've talked to some very large organizations that are sharing numbers a little preliminarily with us, and it does appear that people are getting out. Now, I don't know if they're necessarily the dual career people or that single career person who's not an establishment. But we'll know. We'll probably know in February kind of where we've shaken out to, and it's fine. It's just a natural. We're going through a natural cycle. This is a tough time to be in the industry, and if you're not committed to it, or you have other ways of making money that are easier for you, then it makes sense. People will do other stuff, and they should do other stuff to take care of their families. But the career people are in it. The lifelong professionals. They've seen storms before. They've weathered them before, and they're actually going to end up being the beneficiaries of all this change.
Yeah, because they'll pick up market share from some of the people that leave the industry. And that's what's been super interesting to me. I interview top 1% agents across the country on the show, and none of them have really expressed a tremendous concern, other than just the overall health of the industry is obviously a consideration. Yeah. But for their own personal production, they're not worried. And I think, well, that's a healthy sign. If the top agents are going, hey, things are okay, then and a lot of the top agents, when the buyer compensation, the agency agreement, sort of went into effect, they were like, oh, I already do this, or this is an easy pivot for me. It's not a big deal. And so that was really encouraging to talk to these top agents who were like, nah, not a big deal.
Yeah, I think that's, again, I think a year from now, this will be old discussion. All the pros have figured it out, and then it's just a training issue for the new people to come in and say, here's how we do it, and it'll just be the way we do business. So again, I think we're going to look at it and say, well, and I do think it will improve, has the opportunity to improve the relationship we have with the consumer, which is one of the items in the report. Is like, this is where you need to elevate our description of the services and help consumers understand them, because right now we're getting run down in the media. We're getting run down. We are being portrayed as an industry that does not provide value, when I know truth is on our side, that we do provide a lot of value. We just have to get better about talking about it. We have to show up and really do a great job of that. And that is the opportunity right now, is elevating the professional, elevating the services that we provide, being better at explaining it all to the consumer, getting our own media stories, getting our own narratives out in the media about what we do as a profession. And that's the route out. But I don't see another. There's not another better way. It's like we need to elevate the profession itself.
Yeah, I always think too, it's sort of like the shift from advertising to providing value. A lot of agents love to advertise, right? The just listed, just sold,
Yeah,
look at how much production I'm doing. And again, I'm not here to denigrate any of that. That's great. And this idea of providing true value is what your customers really want. Is what should they do with their homes right now? Should they think about refinancing? Should they think about moving? What neighborhood are they looking to next? What, all of the important life event stuff is where agents can really step in between the
absolutely.
sales while they're in that 12-year holding period at that home, and continue to somehow provide value to that homeowner throughout that lifespan, so that when they are ready to make that next transition, of course, that agent would be first in mind. But what I will say is, it's that road of providing value for, like, say, a 12-year period after somebody buys a home is not a crowded road. So if
No,
you are an agent that, whether it's your transaction or not, maybe it wasn't your purchase, but you want to develop a relationship with that homeowner, I can almost assure you that person's agent will probably not be providing a tremendous amount of it. Now, hopefully they will, but in most cases, I think, people get forgotten about, and there's a lot of opportunity to step in and say, hey, I want to start, telling you about things that you care about, during that time.
there's a reason this industry spends billions of dollars to talk to consumers that don't have an agent, and it's because that those consumers were probably abandoned or forgotten about, or their agent got out of the business. And so that is, and you don't have to spend billions of dollars to do that. You could just do it,
Yeah.
right? So again, I know we've got, some of this is going to be preaching to the choir. You have some top agents to listen to this. The the act of staying in touch with your community and with the people in your life as a friend, but also as a real estate professional, is the lifelong skill that of this industry. And most people don't go the distance. And you're correct; it's not a crowded road of staying in touch with those consumers. And a direct mail campaign is not enough. You need to do a little bit more. And then when it's time to transact, that's when you go high stakes in terms of, here's my value proposition, here's what I do, here's how I'm going to save you money, help you get the home you want, help you get from where you are today to where you want to be, and becoming an expert at that conversation with lots of specific examples, so that you can help your client understand it. That's the skill. That's the skill.
I want to switch to some topics that are of interest to every one of our agents for sure, which is commissions. Talk about the our commissions increasing, decreasing. Is there a compression going on? Where do you see that headed? And we'll start there. So tell us what you
Yeah,
think is
yeah.
going to
So
happen to commissions.
in the opportunity report, we did talk about that, but it wasn't a focus of the report. It wasn't a focus of like, hey, we're surveying the top leaders in the industry to find out where commissions were. And the report was done over the summer, so some of it was before the settlement changes. Subsequent to the report, we did run a survey, and did some survey work, to find out what people were seeing. And it's really interesting, DJ. We have seen that, there absolutely are some agents experiencing commission compression, where they're not, they're seeing their commission pressurized. But on the flip side, we're also seeing agents on the buy side, they're saying they're making more money now,
Mm,
because and here's the key point: they're no longer relying on what the
right.
listing broker is offering. They are instead saying, I'm going to stand on my own 2 feet and explain my value proposition and sign an agreement at what my time value of money is, and they're getting that. And this was confirmed. I spoke with Tom Ferry. I was in his offices about a month ago. We also did a podcast there, and he's done some survey work with his coaching base, and he was finding that was consistent in the survey responses. That there's a pretty healthy sized group of agents that are now actually, they've effectively given themselves a raise. because they are now addressing their compensation on the front end, explaining their value, and they're getting it. And then they're going into the transaction and they're negotiating as part of the transaction and saying, "Hey, I'm going to submit an offer. Here's the offer. Here's the the closing costs we're asking for, some of which will be used to cover their compensation." So I think this is a choose your own adventure type of situation. You can treat it as weather. You can say, is the weather good or bad outside? Or you can decide how you want the weather to be for you in this instance. You can say, look, I'm going to make sure that my value is represented because my time is valuable. And so that's the shakeout. Now, do I think overall that probably means, because there's a lot of people that are going to struggle to negotiate their value. And so that group will experience commission compression. They're not going to be able to, they just won't be as good at negotiating their value. And they probably won't make as much, which means some segment of them will get out. And then the people that can explain value will take that market share. So I'd say it all points in the same direction. It all points to developing that professional narrative and approach to the business and understanding your value. There's some great tools for explaining your value coming out right now. Like, I'm a big fan of James Dwiggins and the work that they're doing over at Raise. It's RAYSE.com, and they're building a tool that keeps track of everything you do for your clients and pulls it out of your email, your calendar, your text messages.
Oh, I love that.
It's super cool. It pulls it all and puts it all in a report, and then it tells you, here's how many hours you spend with a client in meetings. Here's how much time you spend driving them around. Here's all that kind of stuff, and creates a really great summary. And then you can use that in your meetings and say, hey, this is an aggregated report showing the amount of time. Because again, 1000 Watt did a really great survey with consumers, and they found that consumers think that the average consumer thinks that we spend about 15 hours on a transaction, when the reality is it's closer to 80 to 85 hours per transaction. So the consumer's impression is wrong in terms of how much time and effort most agents put into a transaction. And this is where I say truth is on our side. The amount of work, consumers value the work that's being done when they understand it. They have a miscalibration about how much time it actually takes to do a transaction. And that's not to say, of course, there's some transactions that are easier than others, but on average, it's a lot higher than the average consumer thinks it is. So those are things that I would say the industry should use, is tools like that and understanding like that to navigate more effectively. The other thing I'll give you, DJ, which your audience should know, and it's in the opportunity report, it's in our trends report, is that the agents have more value than they think they do. And when you ask the consumer, and you ask the consumer, hey, what's important about your agent? And the number one thing is not the cheapest deal. North American consumers are not cheap. We're not cheapest deal people for the most part. Now, we're always looking for a deal, but what we place above deal is service and trust. That's above. And in the survey work 1000 Watt has done, which has been fabulous, that leads. And so, yes, there are always going to be people that are looking for how to do something cheaper, but they won't do it with somebody that they don't trust, right? They want trust, they want knowledge, they want service, right? If they can't get that at a lower price, they will pay a higher price. And the anecdote I use on stage is we're an economy and a people that we will pay more to have the food delivered than we will for the food itself.
100%.
We value the service. We value this is a very service focused. The North American consumer is very service focused and wants that. And that's how it's like, all of this is in the opportunity report. It's in our trends report. It's in what we've been studying for years. It's validated by survey work done by us and done by others. And what I say is, like, this is some fundamental stuff that as a professional, you can operate with confidence from that and build your business around that. And if you do, you'll be successful. That's all it is.
Again, theopportunityreport.com is where you go to read their most recent information and analysis of the industry. Now I want to talk about brokerage or splits for agents. Do we see a compression there? Do we see splits increasing, decreasing? Where do you see trends headed there?
What's interesting? So we did this is not opportunity report. This is out of our research work in Real Estate Almanac. And we wrote about it in a trends report 2 years ago. And actually, no, it isn't. It's in this year's trends report. We have a new one. We expanded this one. So we looked at what are the broker commission models that are growing the most right now? What are the ones that are really gaining? And if you look, we looked at the top 100 brokerages in the industry and looked at the composition of those brokerages. And what we're seeing is that that all commission models but one are growing in terms of demographically growing. The traditional business model, where you have a graduated commission split, is generally declining. It isn't to say that it's bad. This is not a good bad conversation. It's just there are more companies that are doing more sales volume that are moving in other models.
Yeah.
The model that has grown the most over the last 5 years is a capped commission model, something where there's a cap above and beyond the cap where you pay just a transaction fee or something like that. And that represents, that's what I would refer to as like the Keller Williams model. Like that model is is the one that in the top 100 brokerages has grown the most and substantially the most in the last few years. But your transaction fee models, those have grown. And also the fourth model that we talk about, which is really the team or business generation model, where you have teams that are generating business for their agents. Very profitable model for a broker or a team to operate on. Very challenging to operate. You need some skills to operate it, but that one is also growing. So that's roughly the landscape. I don't know what that means in terms of commission splits for individual agents that are listening to this podcast, right? That's just overall, we look at the top 100 brokerages, we're finding that there are more brokers doing more sales volume on a growth perspective. They're in some kind of capped model. But what I will tell you is that agents, for the most part, have already squeezed all the value out of most brokerages. Most brokers, most of them. We did another study with Account Tech, which is an accounting provider. Again, looked at about 100 brokerages. That's not the top 100, but 100 brokers sampled out of their accounting set. And about 40% of them were unprofitable. And the 60% that were a big chunk of that was like below 4% profitability. So fairly low profitability. So if you look at the landscape, your broker doesn't have more money to give you. You've probably already got most of it. And so where we center on is what's most important is not how much money you give your broker. That is a dumb, boring, uninteresting conversation. Because the real thing is, what do you need in order to run your business?
Right.
And how can you source that? And there are many brokers that are very effective at providing services and support that enable an agent to do another 5 or 6, 7 transactions a year, because they don't have to do the administrative work. They don't have to do the transaction work. They don't have to do the marketing work, and they can focus on the high value part, which is meeting, working with clients. And so that's what I tell people. Say, well, I just want to go and, like, if you are an agent that wants to do every stupid little thing in your business, if you want to upload stuff in the MLS, if you want to manage your own transactions, if you want to do all of that, yeah, go to a place that charges you a really low transaction fee that covers your E&O, and you're like, fine, do it that way. Are you going to make the most amount of money that way? I think there's a real question there.
Sure.
I know myself personally, and I had a license that transacted. I don't want to do all that stuff. And I would find a broker that offered me some staffing and some support. And because what I want to do is I want to meet with prospective clients. I want to go to lunch. I want to go to dinner. I want to have a full calendar of prospective client meetings. And I want to hand all that work off to somebody. And so I'd find a broker that supports me in that kind of way. So I think people get focused on the wrong thing. They're like, oh, I get a better whatever. And I'll tell you, we've interviewed tons of brokers, tons of agents. People don't leave the brokerage that they're with because of a commission issue.
Correct.
They leave the brokerage because of something else.
Service or support.
Somebody ticked them off. Somebody did something they didn't like. Their broker didn't show up for them in a critical moment, right? That's why they leave, and then they blame it on it. Well, they offered me a better deal. No. It's the agent is no different from the consumer in North America. The agent is willing to pay for value. And that's why we're seeing growth of things like, we see Place, which is, Ben Kinney's outfit that it provides additional services and support for people. It's where we see companies like Side. It's where we see companies that provide, that was really, people like to say, well, the growth story of Compass was all about they just bought all these agents. And there's a part of that that's true. But the other part of that that's true is they offered them a lot of services and support. And they said, look, you don't have to have a full-time marketing admin, because we'll do it. Or our technology platform plus our admin staff will do it. So people are willing to pay for that. And and coincidentally, one of the segments that has been the most resilient has been the high end segment. The Sotheby's has been really on a tear the last few years. If you read our almanac reports, you'll see they've been a growth gainer in the high end. And what do those high end brokerages do? They provide a lot of services to their agents. They provide a lot of support, and they've been able to hold their margins better because of that. Because the agent says, you know what, this is really like I want to spend time with high net worth clients, which take a lot of time, right? They're a more intense client, and so that's what I'd say is this commission thing. Don't get distracted. Go get the support and service you need in order to run your business, and pay for it because you're going to pay for it one way or another. And
Right.
you're the most expensive way to pay for it in most cases.
Yeah, what I'm hearing from a brokerage or a team perspective who's looking to recruit members, look for solutions to whatever that agent you're trying to recruit's business is, whatever
Right.
problems that business is experiencing. And it might be commission split, but it's probably a more than that because if it was just commission split, everyone would be at a transaction based
That's
firm.
right. That's
They'd
right.
all be paying
Yeah.
$400 a transaction, and
Yeah.
we'd all go on our merry way. And we find that in most cases, top producers aren't at those firms because oftentimes the services are not as
Yeah.
prevalent.
The
So
service, the brand, the value package. If conversation starts with what commission split, you're actually having the wrong conversation. You need to
yeah,
start with the value. You start with the value. Understand the value. How does it help you? I always tell brokers you shouldn't be measuring things like the way you should be measuring things is how many successful agents are you creating in your brokerage?
yeah,
Who's getting to go on vacations? Who's sending their kids to nice schools that they want to send their kids to? Who's able to fulfill their retirement ambitions via their work? Like that's what we should be measuring, not the commission. People go straight to the commission split. I'm like, you're measuring the wrong thing. That's a dumb thing to measure. Let's measure outcomes. Let's look at lives. And I'd say the same to the agent. You need to look at your life. And does the broker you're with support you and the way you do business? And that's the most important thing.
yeah, I absolutely agree. So I want to circle back to value because again, our listeners are individual practitioners or team leads or team members and brokerage owners as well. We're all thinking about how do we keep the train rolling while obviously listings are down right now. It's a little bit trickier to work with buyers at present day, and obviously rates aren't exactly where anyone would prefer them to be in relation to
Right.
3 years ago. So
Right.
it's a tricky time. And so if you were out there practicing today and you were thinking about your 2025 business plan, and I know you're going to say lots to do with value, but I'm curious if there's anything specific that you'd say I would focus on this.
Yeah, so I was in brokerage through the great financial crisis, and we had to get real creative, right? Because we had a similar problem. We had listings that were sitting for longer and longer and longer, right? And we had buyers that couldn't afford to buy because of that. So it was a similar problem. So what we wanted to do is, first of all, know that people need to sell real estate. People need to buy real estate. There's fundamental stuff that's happening that means they need to buy it. And if you're just talking to your network and they don't need to buy or sell real estate right now, that means you need to add something into what you're doing to find the people that are. And you may need to go into other territories. And then the discourse that we teach at T360, there's 4 ways that agents make money. They make money via networking with their sphere. They make money via prospecting specific targeted opportunities, expires, canceled, withdrawals, for sale by owners, people that tried to sell their homes 2 or 3 years ago. That's a great, if I was in business today, I'd pull a list and see, hey, who are people that tried to sell, weren't able to, and go back to that list because things change, life changes. Lead generation, paying for leads and inquiries and opportunities. There's a lot of pay at close companies right now that are doing very well. And last is marketing and brand and becoming the local market expert, really
Sure.
sucking up all of an opportunity because you're the best in a particular area. Those are the 4 fundamental ways. So I would say if the way you're doing isn't working right now, if you're an agent that's primarily dependent on your sphere, which is most agents are dependent on their sphere, then that you have 2 options. You can grow your sphere by investing time in your community and networking, or you can pick one of these other ways. Usually the easiest way to pick in terms of things you have control over and you don't have to spend a bunch of money on is prospecting, is to say, I'm going to go find a list of canceled, FISBO, expired, withdrawn, people that tried to sell and weren't able to and still need to, and go generate listings, right? And that's usually internet lead generation is great if you find pay at close companies. There's a lot of them that are recommended. We keep a list that you can receive referral leads from. So I'd be looking at those and saying, if you have money to spend and you can spend it, great. If you don't, then do pay at close companies. And then marketing and brand right now is when you're actually establishing. You could use this time to establish yourself as an expert within an area because most people are getting out. I think that's more of a long-term play. But by the way, if you're gonna be in the business in 5 years, worthwhile to say, look, I'm really going to focus on these neighborhoods or these areas and use this time, to build my reputation there by taking listings there. The other piece is we have to get really good with the conversation with the seller. What's going to get buyers off the sidelines is well-priced quality properties, right? So those, and again, coming through the whole COVID nonsense, there's people in this industry have never had a price reduction conversation, have never set the seller's expectations. We had a lot of those at our company during the GFC. So that is something we have to get really good at about saying, look, here's the reality of the buyers. The buyers in the market don't have a lot of money and they're being forced into high interest rates, which by the way, are going to be persistent. Those high interest rates are not, everybody's talking about like somebody's going to wave a magic wand.
Some magical 200 basis points down.
That's not how this works, people. That's not how that works. And by the way, as long as the government keeps borrowing money in the bond market, mortgage rates are going to stay high. That's what it is. That's not even, you could change the rate. The Fed could change the rate all day long. But if the investors can get a better rate by buying bonds from the government, why are they going to buy a mortgage-backed thing? They're not. So the mortgages are going to be driven by the bond market. And so there's no magic tricks there. But you have to get really good about talking about that with your sellers and getting properties priced appropriately, which is going to be lower so that you can get some buyers off the sideline. Because that's when buyers are going to move. They're going, you know what? I can actually afford that now. And it's a quality property. So we have to get good at those skills. And that's what I would be doing in the market situation right now. There's a lot of tactics. There's a lot of little mechanics in there, but that's the kind of stuff I think about. It's like,
so I'm hearing a lot of pick up market share this year over the next 12 months. This is a year to pick up market share and realize too that a lot of agents, the vast majority of agents are not single career agents. So there is a lot of opportunity, I think, to begin to demonstrate more value over a long-term period. And the good news, as we said earlier, is it's not a crowded road. There's lots of ways to do it. And it's not just an email newsletter once a month. We should also mention that nobody wants to read your newsletter.
No, do something different. Do something. I always tell people, get weird. Do something that'll stand out. Have a great holiday party that is memorable. Rent out a movie theater and invite everybody in your database and do some weird stuff. If you can't afford that, do it in your backyard with a screen. Whatever. Do something to connect with your community, to connect with people that know you, and get creative and do something different right now. And now is a great time. The creative energy, I think, shows up the most in a market like this, where you just have to get creative because you don't have a bunch of money to throw around.
Right. I wanted to ask you too. Do you think? So we have a good percentage of homeowners in this country that have a 3% or less current rate, or around 3 to 4%. Do we see that? Is that going to extend the amount of time that these homeowners are staying in these properties simply because they don't want to upgrade and have to pay a higher rate? I know I'm in that situation a bit where it's psychologically and just financially a difficult sort of thing to consider. How hamstrung are these homeowners who, refied to the best possible rate they'll ever see in their lifetime, and then, that
it's a great question. I think all of us that my wife and I own some investment rental properties, and I would sell them today. If I knew that the market situation was different. We are in a house. Fortunately, we bought a house right before the pandemic, and we're in one of those super, sub 3% type of situations. And I don't think you can talk people out of their rate. Yeah, so I think that's a waste of time. I really do. But what I will say is, what we should be finely attuned to are the life situations that cause people to want to move, regardless of that. Because ultimately, people don't live and die by their like the check they write for their mortgage every day. It is about how close am I to where I work now? I've got 2 more kids since the beginning of the pandemic.
Do I have enough space?
I got to put them somewhere. I
Yeah.
don't like my living situation. So those are the things to be attuned to, because those are the things that will cause people to say, you know what, it's more important to me that I keep the household happy and that I'm happy and not miserable and I'm in the place I need to be than it is what dollars a month or what the rate is. Everybody got into this whole competing on rates thing, and we're just going to have to get over that because we're not going to see low rates for a long time. So I think just being finally attuned to that, to what life is, and life puts pressure on people to buy or sell real estate over time.
Yeah.
And that pressure will build up and build up and build up and build up. And finally, one day they're going to go, I don't care that I got a great rate. I need 2 more bedrooms or I'm going to go crazy, right? Or I got a job and it's on the whole other end of the universe and I'm tired of driving an hour to and an hour from every day. We've got to move. Or my
Yeah.
kid is now at this age, I want him in that school district and I'm done. And that's the thing to be attuned to right now, because that's going to build up, because we can, even if we could wave a magic wand and make the Fed change the rate, it wouldn't impact anything. We got an economic issue there with just the nature of the lending and the bond market and the mortgage market. We can't control any of that. But what we can do is we can pay attention to our clients and when they.
Yeah, and I think too, it's a great opportunity to partner up with life event service partners, such as estate planning attorneys, divorce attorneys, accountants, people that are aware of maybe their clients' needs, their life event needs in
Yep.
relation to their financial health, and can actually say, now's a good time to move, or you have to move. I've got a good realtor that I trust, that I want to introduce you to. If it was me, I would be looking. I mean, look, as unfortunate as this is to say, I think the divorce rate currently is around 57%
Yeah.
of all marriages that
Yeah.
have come post pandemic. I believe that's accurate or close to
Yeah.
it.
The pandemic put us all in a room with somebody that we decided we might not like.
It
I'm
either
not
went,
one of those people, but
yeah,
I've seen.
either accelerated intimacy or it blew it up. So anyway, the reality of it is we just have a lot of divorces, and so this is a huge opportunity. People who are getting divorced, they have to move. Somebody's going to move, most likely in every scenario. So this is a great opportunity to really think about life events. Those people have to move at a certain time, and again, probably beating a horse at this point with that, but great opportunity there.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, if you're not doing the business you want to do, then you need to add something or change something. And again, the 4 fundamental ways I talked about. Rewind the tape, go back, and then we have a lot of material on that at our company. We talk about that all the time.
One last question I have, Jack, for you, because I know you're a busy guy and you've already spent a tremendous amount of time with us. I wanted to just talk about this and get your thoughts about it, which is this is in your report, which really very it's always funny to me when I see this in a report, because it's something that we bring up all the time and it doesn't seem to really change much, which is that the number of hours somebody needs to embark on to become a real estate professional is
Yeah.
is really out of alignment with other industries who have much less at stake for those
Yes.
services, right? So, my here in Illinois, if you want to cut hair, if you want to be whatever or I guess is that cosmetology or whatever that's called.
It's cosmetology, as I
Yeah,
think the license you need.
cosmetology. If you want to be a cosmetologist, you have to do 1,500 hours
Yeah.
of actual like working with clients before. And it takes years. And so
Yeah.
we know that in Illinois, we used to have to become a real estate license. We call them brokers here, but real estate agent essentially. You used to have to do 90 hours. Now it's 75 hours. We even reduced it. So I'm wondering if you see that changing to help elevate some of the professionalism or.
We advocated for it in the opportunity report, and I've personally done some consulting work with some state associations that have lobbied for those kinds of changes. And I'd say it's a hard road, because a lot
Yeah.
of states want to keep the regulatory limitations very low. They want to make real estate easy to get into, and that's I understand that from a
Sure.
free market capitalism perspective. I get it. The reality is we need an agent to be productive in this industry needs more training. They need more mentorship and apprenticeship. And so in working with our clients, that's what we advocate. Say, look, you bring agents in, you need to have them really apprentice and set up a program to do that. Some states are making changes there or are requiring more. Like Texas is, I live in Texas. This state has been upping its requirements over the last decade and a half. I think it now takes 240 hours to get licensed here, which I think
Wow.
is the most in the country. The renewal requirements are higher here. The broker requirements, get a broker license here, you have to do a certain number of transactions and
Oh,
have had a
interesting.
history. You can't just go to the broker course and go take the broker license thinking now you're a broker. You have to actually have done transactions or some requirements around it. And I think those are the kinds of things that are sensible. But this is where I believe the state associations can play a strong role in educating. The biggest gap we have is the regulators and the lawmakers in many states do not really understand real estate, and they see it as a um, they don't understand the mechanisms of our profession and the risks and the costs and the liabilities and all of that. I mean, you get a bad haircut, it's fixed in 2 weeks. It's not the end of the world. You go through a bad real estate transaction, you're in a lawsuit, lost time and effort, money, substantial potential damage to people financially or personally, where they're in a house that's unhealthy for them to be in. So it's a lot, and I think this is where we need to do a better job as an industry, educating the regulators, educating the lawmakers about why our industry may need more credentialing because of how easy it is to get licensed and come in and do a bunch of stuff. If you're a professional in like construction engineering and you're working in a construction firm, you're building bridges, you're building stuff like that. There's a level of impact that is reflected by the amount of licensure and being certified as a professional engineer, and the contracts require that people have a certain amount of background. And those are the kinds of things that I believe need to come more into real estate. Not so high to make this I don't want to. This should never be an industry that creates barriers where it's impossible for people to join it. But at the same time, it needs to reflect the level of responsibility and risk that's involved in a real estate transaction for the average consumer.
So the through line that I heard, not just you talk about in the opportunity report, again, the opportunityreport.com is where you can download this. Gosh, I don't know, is it maybe 100-page
About
document,
100 pages. Yeah, about 100 pages. Yeah,
100
but it's an
pages.
easy
And
read. It's not dense. It's not like a
oh, no,
whole
no, no.
page. It's not like a
It's
book. Yeah.
No, it's everybody should go do this. The opportunityreport.com. This will help not only give you some confidence in what's going on in the industry, but also give you some ideas of trends. But the through line, as Jack has said since the minute one, is value. So I think increasing your value to the public is really what agents can work on and can maybe expect to have a successful year if they're focused on value.
Yeah, 100%. You
Well,
got it.
there we got no. So I want everybody right now to do a couple of things. One, the opportunityreport.com, download your free report, and it is I almost wish that you charged people $1 for it, just so that they would, because we know that people
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
value
People
as
pay
many.
for things, and when they pay for it, then they'll like take it a little more seriously. But yeah,
Yeah, it is.
uh,
It is so much. It is worth thousands of dollars what you have put out there. Seriously, and it's amazing. So thank you for providing that to the industry. That is incredibly generous and something that is really helpful to all of us, whether we're in the brokerage side or we're actual agents ourselves, or both. So thank you for that. And I want you also to start getting into the habit of checking realestatenews.com. There's a new game in town, a new player in the space of news, and you might not know them yet. So check them out, get them on your regular read list. I wish people still use RSS readers like I used to years ago. I'd put it in my Google News or Feedly. I don't think people do that anymore, but definitely check out realestatenews.com. They really just hit the most important stuff. One email a day if you want to subscribe to their news, their email newsletter. It's right on their homepage. Check it out, realestatenews.com. And if you're a brokerage or a top agent out there who is looking for a firm that really has a handle on where the industry is headed, where it is currently, and they have the data to support it, and an 83% success rate on a report they ran 10 years ago, predicting the future, I would say reach out to T360. They are the only game in town. They are the McKinsey. They are the white glove consulting firm of our industry. And I'm so grateful, Jack, to have had you on the show, because this is a big thing for us. We appreciate you. We love what you're doing for the industry. You help our firms like ours know what to do right now. And so on behalf of brokerages that read your content, thank you. We love it, and we need it. And often the ideas that you guys come up with or the conclusions you draw are counterintuitive to what us on the brokerage side think are happening. We're like, oh, cool, okay. But anyway, we'd love to get you back on the show in the future, talk about some other emerging trends. But for now, we will thank Jack on behalf of all of our listeners. By the way, tell your local association that you would like them to connect with T360 as well. They are partnering with local associations to provide certain types of value. This is a huge opportunity if you're connected with either your local, state, or maybe you work at NAR. Wherever you are participating in the industry, talk about T360. Everybody knows them already, but they are working on partnerships. So check them out, reach out to T360. And if you're looking for some consultancy as well, maybe you're looking to, build your brokerage faster, or just want to get some ideas of best practices, T360 would love to talk to you as well. Jack, on behalf of our audience, thank you. On behalf of Jack and myself, I want to thank the audience for making it all the way to the end. Please tell a friend about this episode. Everybody needs to hear what Jack just talked about, and send them a link to this show. Please also check out our sponsors and leave us a review. Let us know what you think of the show, what we could even do better, or what would be better for you. We make changes. We read all of that, and we appreciate your feedback. Jack, thank you once again, and we will see everybody on the next episode.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, TJ.